Hey, welcome back to the Outpost. Today we're going to review the 4 episodes on forgiveness and reconciliation with Mark Goodman. The more we understand and the more we look at those moments with Mark, the more we realize, man, we have a lot of work to do and so much more to learn. So when we come back, we're going to get to work. Come on back to the Outpost. Hey, welcome back to the Outpost. My name is Scott Dubois. That's Peyton Barrett. This is Tim Baker. We're excited that you're with us and welcome. Couple things. This is going to be our recap from the Mark Goodman episodes. There were 4 and they were fire. Yeah. It was about forgiveness and reconciliation. So this is what it's going to look like. We're going to each go around the table and talk about the things that stood out to us really quickly. We're going to call it the lightning round. Then we're going to go back around and talk about the things that really mattered, the things that weighed in on us, more of a deep dive. In this equation, I want you to know that most of what we're going to talk about and review was also really, really active in our community, in our discussion community, in our feedback community. So we're literally walking with you and want to talk further and more about the things that you want to talk about. So with that, I'm going to kick it off to Tim to get us started.
All right. So first of all, thank you, Mark. Wow. I've known Mark for a long time and I knew his story, but boy, not just the sessions we spent with him, but the times I've gone back and reviewed him and the stuff that I need to work on is so powerful. So Mark, thank you. I hope you've all had the chance to watch those. Couple big things happened for me in this. I hearken back to a couple things. One, like when the sound barrier was broken, when Roger Bannister ran the first sub 4-minute mile, how like something that was inconceivable changed the way everybody thought. It realigned thinking. That's what Mark Goodman just did for me. Wow. Around his relationship with his father. Like I've said, I feel like I'm pretty good at this. That's world class. And the Ed Smart, yeah, those 2 stories have changed me. So thank you both for that. So that's one big one. And then it's an identity question. He said, be a mercy giver and not a mercy taker. And I'm not sure I've ever thought of myself as either, but boy, I'm going to challenge myself to start to identify as a mercy giver. That's again, it's not something we talk a lot about in our circles and as men. And like, what does it mean to be a mercy giver?
We've talked for years about being life givers, but never mercy givers. Yeah.
So both of those literally have changed who I am.
Wow.
So.
And those were both from our first episode.
That was first. I mean, they're overriding concepts, but they really came out of 106. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for me.
Wow. That's awesome.
I think it's back to you, Scott.
I was stunned about growing up in church, growing up Christian household. You know, forgiveness was always a 2-part equation. And it was stunning to me to know that forgiveness was really one-sided and it was for me. Forgiveness was something for me to do. Forgiveness was a gift for me to give, in a sense, myself, but also the person, best efforts. And I think for me, that was freeing. Another one that really hit me was this whole idea of the dog bite, that things are going to bite us. Dogs, marriages, jobs, failure, pain, things are going to bite us. But it's what we do after the dog bite or after whatever bites us that really allows and sets up a much longer journey. Do we clean up the dog bite? Do we handle the dog bite? Or do we let infection stir and grow? Man, oh man, how many times have I been bit and just let infection stir? And that leads to the other part that was profound to me. And some of this comes from The Cure, a book out of the True Face Ministry, and some of this comes out of what Mark was saying. But the idea that as we get stuck in our unforgiveness, we kind of get trapped in being the victim. We go from having a problem and suffering a consequence to being the problem. And I think it's part of the infection of the dog bite, but I think it's a larger issue of really, really, really not handling it from really, really, really stuffing it or being too prideful to try to clean it up, or prideful to address it, or afraid to address it. And I just think, how many times have I gone from having a problem, stress at work, whatever, to all of a sudden becoming the problem.
Wow.
Angry. He's not present. He's distracted. So anyway, those are just some things that just really, really heard him before. But when Mark said them, I really, really heard him.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, my lightning round is actually the dog bite as well. I think for me, that was just a really great visual between the difference. You know, he held out his arm. He said, you know, the dog bite is the wound, is the whatever the person has done to offend you in whatever way that is. And the dog bite can look different. Like, we can get bitten by all different sizes of dogs, right? You get bit by a little Chihuahua, it's going to look, you know, pretty small, maybe bleed a little bit, but you get bit by, you know, big dog, Great Dane, you know, Rottweiler, half your arm might be missing. So the dog bite's going to look different. The wound is going to look different. But the infection is the same.
Yeah.
And we get to choose whether we get an infection or not. And I think it comes from how we react to the dog bite and how quickly we react to the dog bite. If we try to treat the dog bite ourselves, or if we ask for help, if we seek counsel, if we seek accountability, if we keep the dog bite, if we keep the wound in isolation, it's much more likely that infection grows and spreads. And so the idea that the dog bite can all look different, but the infection always looks the same. And it's up to us to decide whether or not we're going to let an infection even begin, or if we have let it begin, whether consciously or self-consciously, we need to recognize that it's begun. We need to start to see the effects of it spread. And what was interesting is it was probably a couple years ago, and I was working with some metal on a project in the garage, and I sliced my finger open with this metal. And my misconception about, you know, diseases you can get and whatever was, oh my gosh, I haven't gotten my tetanus shot in forever. I'm going to get an infection. I need to go to the doctor. But I couldn't schedule it because it was on a weekend and whatever. So I scheduled the appointment to go get my tetanus shot, and I go, and I'm kind of stressed about it for like 2 days because I just get that way about medical things. And I'm like, I'm gonna die, and so I go into the urgent care to get my shot, and the nurse is like, "Oh, you haven't had your tetanus. We'll get," and I'm like, "Well, I'm kind of worried because I sliced my finger open pretty good with metal, and I'm worried I've got a tetanus infection." And she's like, "Oh no, I think you're fine. It looks fine." And I was like, "Well, can you have the doctor come in and have him look at me just to make sure that I do, like, just so I have peace of mind?" She's like, "Yeah, sure. We'll have the doctor come in." And so the doctor comes in and he's like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "Well, I sliced my finger and I'm worried that I have an infection. I'm worried that I have tetanus." And he looks at it, he grabs my hand and he looks at it and he goes, "No, you don't have tetanus. You don't have an infection." And I said, "Well, how do you know?" "Just by looking at it." And he said, "Because it would be all purple and nasty, and it would look like there's all these blood veins coming out from it. Like, you would be able to look at it and you'd be able to tell right off the bat that you have a nasty infection and you need a shot to take care of it." And I said, "Oh, well, if I had known that, I wouldn't have even come in."
Yeah.
Because I know I can look at it and go, I don't have an infection.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think like combining the visuals of those for me was powerful in that, like, you should be able to pretty easily look at the wound, that slice on your finger, the dog bite in your arm, and go, is there an infection spreading? And do I need a shot to take care of it? And that shot is, I mean, go back and watch the episodes with Mark. It's everything we explored in those first 3 episodes of, you know, take it out of the light, and work on it with yourself. And it doesn't have to be a 2-sided thing. You can work on that infection yourself, because forgiveness doesn't have to be 2-sided. It's 1-sided. So without that becoming my deep dive, that was my lightning round.
Wow.
The thing that I love about and I'm going to come back to the dog bite, is the Chihuahua bite or the pit bull, both could kill you.
Yeah.
And the idea that that's what Mark said over and over again, some minor, what may appear minor to people that have been through the trauma that he's been through, could literally destroy somebody's life. So it's not the deepness of the wound, it's the way you manage the wound. And I'm going to go into some personals on that from in my deep dive.
One of the things that's interesting is that when we had the outing a few months ago, it was interesting to me as men got around each other, enjoyed a meal together, talked by fire. There was fire everywhere. It was interesting to me how many, all of a sudden we started to conjure up stories where you could hear guys, with this lens, you could hear guys talking about their dog bites. My dad bit me. My oldest son has bitten me. My mother-in-law bit me.
Oh yeah. We've all had many.
My boss bit me. And I thought to myself, as we hear this with this new lens, it's just so interesting how we all get bit. And then, as you said, Peyton, how fast do we respond? And do we respond? Because sometimes it's easier to stuff and power up. Stuff and become angry, because when you're angry, you can't. There's no fear in anger. When you're angry, you're angry. You can't be fearful.
And how many more people are you gonna bite?
Yeah,
as the dog, you at that point now you become the dog. And you start biting
point, you
other
become
people.
the problem.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Good stuff.
I've been the problem.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start the deep dive. I think TB, you're gonna kick.
I'm
going to
go first, and I'm going to kind of build right back on that one. So much of these sessions struck me personally. They weren't conceptual. It was like, oh my goodness, not just I've learned that lesson, but I haven't learned that lesson. Like I'm a novice in this pursuit. So the first one I want to deep dive on is I talked about in one of the episodes that I had some trauma in my life. A significant number of times that I had forgotten. That literally it would no longer existed in my memory banks, and in some ways I felt delivered from that a little bit. But to the point, you get bitten or you get stung by a mosquito or whatever, and you don't pay attention to it, and you act like it's not there, or you really don't know it's there. It's no less dangerous, and maybe that infection has run wild for a long time because I've been unaware. And so what does that mean? And it makes me remember, I went through a program at North Point called Renew, which is really like uncovering your wounds. And the finding was, you have trust issues. And I'm wondering if this isn't a part of that.
And you didn't know that you had trust issues.
I did. Well, I knew I had, and I still do, have intimacy problems with God. And I'll go further into that. But is this a part of that? Is this somehow you've developed a coping mechanism just allows you to be amnesic? Where I go with that, and I said this in podcasts before, what is that trust wound cost my wife? Like, what does it cost my friend? What does it cost my children? And I'm not even sure yet. So,
and is it causing you to bite others like the dog?
I don't even know. I don't even know. And there'll be interesting conversations that'll come for that. So, Mark, thank you for that. The other big topic for me, or another one, was I've said before, I haven't ever given myself, it started with, I didn't give myself permission ever to be angry at my parents. Like it was just an intolerable. So again, it wasn't, I was angry and I just hid it. I wasn't allowed to, I didn't allow myself to feel that. And I remember hearing over and over again is, your beginning of spiritual maturity is when you allow yourself to be disappointed in God. And I've heard from many of our close friends about how angry they were with God. Mark talked about
We need to do a deep dive just on
angry with God. And I've never allowed that. And I wonder if that has hindered my intimacy. So that,
because he can take it. He's big enough to take.
You laugh when you think like, what? For me, it just is, it strikes me as so disrespectful and so ungrateful that I can't, it's a bridge too far for me. And that may be part of this amnesia. And this is how I manage my pain. And I don't give myself permission.
Tim, it reminds me when we used to talk about one of the parts of identity is how you see God. I think sometimes the first face that we apply to our Heavenly Father is the face of our earthly Father. And unfortunately, we box our Heavenly Father into the same box that we did for our earthly father. So if you grew up not being able to have anger with your earthly father, imagine how hard it is to even conceive being angry with your Heavenly Father. If you grew up not having that unconditional love, unconditional acceptance, that this is my son with whom I'm well pleased moment with your earthly father. Imagine how far that bridge is to really trust and accept and know from your Heavenly Father. It makes perfect logical sense. And I don't think we consciously have these thoughts or put these limitations on ourselves. I think it comes out of what we just subconsciously do. Well, of course if you can't do it with him, what are you going to do with him?
No way. Well, were you no. The evolution of that in this discourse with Mark was, you don't start in anger. You look at his progression, and so it's required. And I'll reiterate that just for everybody.
Yeah, where do we start?
I'll go backwards. If you have hurts, they generally come from a blame, which comes from anger, which comes from judgment. So it starts with judgment.
Judgment.
And here I am jumping to anger. And that was my concept. And so what does this really say is I'm not comfortable sitting in judgment of God. And the truth is I'm not. If you ask me, I'd say, no, I'm not comfortable with that. Maybe that's something I need to look at. Like, can you imagine? Tim Baker's going to sit in judgment of God? But maybe that's required.
But that's part of the wrestle and the battle with God, and he can handle it.
And he can handle it. And he wants to have that conversation.
And I'm reading Revelation right now during my quiet time every morning for the last, couple months. I've only made it through the first 5 chapters because it takes me that long to break everything down and try to understand it. But the way that I'm going through it right now is I'm going through Revelation not to try to understand the tribulation or the end times. I've read it before with that in mind. Going through it, trying to figure out what does Revelation, what is in there in Revelation tell me about who Jesus is now, post-ascension, and who God is now, post-ascension, Jesus being who he is. And how does that reframe? Because we sort of think of this Jesus in a white robe, and the mercy, soft Jesus that sort of the modern church has created, this caricature of a Jesus. But then you read Revelation 1 and you're like, that is not the Jesus. The description that John gives of Jesus, these fiery eyes and this sword, the tongue like a sword, and that's a masculine, different, little bit scary Jesus. So anyway, that's a tangent. Where I was going with that is in Revelation, I think it was 7 or 8. It talks about Israel, and my study Bible had a little blurb at the bottom, and it broke down the name. It was talking about Jacob was renamed to Israel, and it said that Israel was the warrior, but it was that's what Israel means, is essentially God's warrior. But where it came from, it was talking about the idea that Jacob was renamed to Israel after his battle with God.
Yes.
And I was like, God, like, to your point, like, people battle with God, and it's in the Bible. I mean, all the big guys, like Job battled with God. Moses battled with God. We can battle with God about this stuff, and we can, now it might not be right to be in judgment of God, because who are we to judge God, right? But it's an honest emotion that we feel in our broken humanity, and God wants us to bring that to him.
And how good was God that he not only wrestled with Jacob, he let Jacob walk away from it.
Yeah.
With a limp.
And renamed him and put him in charge.
I know. So your reward for wrestling with me is I'm going to leave you with something, a limp.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to remember this.
You're going to remember this. and I'm going to rename you and put you in charge of a country.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to have you go run a people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is very similar to, David, the Bathsheba thing. And then her husband was, Uriah, you had him, the Hittite, you had him murdered. And you're like, and the reward for that is, I'm going to call you a man after
God's
my heart.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so funny. His system of how he judges and punishes and rewards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it doesn't make
and elevates. It defies.
It's not our economy. His economy
it
is
is
different.
not our
Doesn't
economy.
compete.
That's a great way. It's not our economy.
Yeah. I got that from you.
Thank you.
Great,
Trademark.
great segue into the other big takeaway for me. We've heard from our community directly and in our closer Atlanta community, some fathers that are really struggling with issues with their adult children and families that are fractured. So this concept is that we just discussed, maybe a call to us fathers, be the kind of father that God has demonstrated that he is, that allows his children to come and judge them and to reject their values, and still love them. Like what did Mark say is like, I'm going to love you. I want your love. I want to love you more than I want retribution, more than I want revenge, more than I want to be right. And what I see in the men that I've had interactions with is, I don't disagree that they're not right. In the cases that I'm from, they're right, but their kids have rejected it. And they've lost relationship with their adult children because the kids aren't going to live by their dad's absolutes. And I just think the example that you just went through and we just talked about of how God treats us, he allows us to have our own minds, to think for ourselves, to make mistakes, to be wrong, and yet still react in anger. And he doesn't reject us. He doesn't throw us out. He doesn't say, how dare you? Don't be disrespectful. And I think maybe that's a call more than just an instance when our kids are adults, but maybe in the way that we raise our sons in particular. Do we raise them? You keep your mouth shut. You'll do what I say. And God didn't say that. God isn't saying that now. Yes, he isn't saying that now.
And I think one of the things I think about is, we talk about in the reference to our sons and our children, but Tim, I also think about reference that to our wives, that our wives feel safe enough, loved enough, where they can wrestle with us, and we're like, okay, I'm going to love you through it. I don't really want to be right. I'm going to accept it, and after the exchange, like God did with Jacob, I'm going to elevate you. I'm going to still cover you. I'm going to still be for you. There is no doghouse. I'm now doubling down, all chips on you, as opposed to sometimes that dynamic is full of so much chess that it never really gets cleared and cleaned. The slate never really gets wiped. And I think about that. I also think about, the people in business. I think about some of the clients I have. Man, if they could just focus on access and influence as Andy Stanley would say, rather than being right.
Mm.
Right, you don't, in rightness, you don't win the argument at work.
Mm-hmm.
In rightness, you may win, but did you really win? And in rightness, you don't really win the arguments with our spouses or our kids, because you can win the argument, but did you really win the argument?
And lose it all. Yeah.
And lose it all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think,
about
there is a nuance to that, in that I don't think loving well requires you to forfeit your convictions.
No.
And God, all those disagreements with God, I don't think he changed his position.
No, I think he did.
I don't think you argued him into a better.
Okay. Okay, Satan, I'll let you be God. I know.
He was
I know.
right the whole time, and he's right now, and he didn't change. But allowing people under your authority to challenge your authority and not be offended and treat it as, and there's a right way to do it and a wrong way. I get it. But if you want reconciliation, what does love require? Sorry.
And no, you're fine. And realize that, surprise, surprise, we're not God. And although God's convictions are always right, and we might think our convictions are right, they might not be right.
That's true.
And so, yes, hold to them, but also have a heart posture of, could I learn something from this?
Yeah.
Who was it that we heard from that says, listen as if you're wrong? Didn't we just hear that? The idea of be open to the idea that you may not have all the facts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And being right shouldn't be on. I mean, we put that on the altar like everything else.
Yeah.
That's not your role.
Well, I've just walked into some friction. I've just walked into some circumstances. I've just been bit. It hurts. Small bites and big bites can kill you. I love that point. And then it's almost the Jamie Winship. Okay, God, what do you want me to learn? And what do you want me to do?
Amen.
Because nothing is by accident. What are you trying to teach me? How is it? What are you asking me to do or to reconsider?
I remember our conversation with Woodall about when I was dying, or I thought I was dying. I said, "What do you want, God? What do you want me to learn? What do you want me to learn from this?" And he was like, "Nah, Tim, no." What was this? One word? Come.
Yeah.
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 And so for all of you out there that are struggling and desperate, like maybe there isn't here's what you need to do, but just, seek the presence of God and the peace that only he can give.
This is more Mary than Martha. Mary just sat at the feet of God. Martha was whirling dervish.
And I, query my own ego is like my identity, how my children behave does affect my identity. And you can understand why your pride would, like, what does the world think of me as a parent when they see what my kids are doing, which are clearly not what I've taught them? What an opportunity maybe just to put that aside and say, God, I trust you. I think it's a very Job moment. Job was humiliated and his friends are making fun of him. Yeah, maybe that. And maybe that's what I required to be on my deathbed to learn that. So God's taken me to the end to learn that, and I'm still learning. Those are my big bigs.
That's great.
So I think on the deep dive, two things really stuck out. I have never heard the 3 or 4 parts of an apology. I'm like, what? I'm almost 60, and I'll just read what Mark said. The 3 parts of an apology. Forgive the person. Forgive the event. Then forgive the pain it caused. Not just what happened, not just the consequences, but the pain and the realization that the event, the person, and the pain it caused, created and will create, even if there's forgiveness, long-term consequences. Like I just had never heard the idea of saying, look, I'm sorry I did this. I'm sorry that it caused this pain and hurt you this way. And I'm sorry that in the outcomes of that and the consequences of that were X, Y, Z. I have never heard that before. And we, in my house, in our house, we've always been the first to apologize. We've always been we're not waiting. We're always, the unconditional mandate for love always means, always going to the other person I always try to be the first person. Even if I'm not wrong, even if I don't feel like
or created the major offense or whatever, you take
want to
your share.
Repair,
right
renew,
so
repair.
good.
And I thought to myself over the years with little kids and, the ebbs and flows in marriage, I thought, how many times have I apologized? And it's just been, hey, I want to apologize. We asked for forgiveness, but I never teased out the different parts and pieces. And I'm like, what remains on the slate that probably could have been removed if I really focused on the 3 or 4 parts? I had never heard of that before.
And the long-term consequences.
Yeah. And I
think
think
a lot of, as we know, wounds, you can't wipe wounds away.
No.
Like you can accept forgiveness or whatever, but that wound's still going to be with you for life, a lot of them.
There are wounds and they scar up.
Yeah.
And if you really press on a scar, it hurts.
Yeah.
So I think to myself, man, if I had just been, maybe I was in a hurry to keep the peace. Maybe I had other motives to keep the peace. Maybe I was trying to expediently not feel anger about what I did or anger about what she did or he did. Maybe there was some more thoughtfulness in being that thorough. I'm like, oh,
it's a totally new concept.
That was new.
Totally new.
The other ones I really liked. I liked the Tim, you touched on this. Anger as a cover for a narrow emotional vocabulary. He went all into that. There was this idea of covering versus correcting. You and I have spent a lot of time recently talking about cherishing. And but the one I want to talk about is the domino chain. You brought that up earlier, and I just think, I've sussed out in my first when I left Apple, and they don't know it. They won't know it till this podcast.
Yeah, I'll turn off your.
I did. I'm like, I read the book about the good king. So one of the things he says is, you really can't be a good king unless you've gone through therapy. So I'm like, hey, I have some time on my hands. Let's do it. So I had 2 therapists going. I had one guy who was involved in our Uganda ministry and Dr. Z. And I went in. I jumped in both feet, 2 people. I was under the microscope. And one of the conversations with Dr. Z, he said, I really think you really got a problem with your mother. And I'm like, no, I don't. He goes, we've talked about this 2 sessions for 45 minutes. Okay. And I think about the domino chain of judgment leads to anger. Anger leads to blame. And the idea that what has put me in positions to be judgmental, to justify my anger? Was it expectations unmet? Was it, I don't know, but that whole domino chain of judgment leads to anger, anger leads to blame, and how dangerous judgment is, because behind judgment, there is something unmet.
Oh yeah.
There is something oozing under judgment. There's a desire for something or a lack of something. And that sent me reeling.
You and I haven't talked about that. I want to hear more about that. When he talked about you need to have a judgment detox. Do you remember him mentioning that? I need to understand what that means. So Mark, when I run into you next time, I'm going to ask that question.
I want to go to, I want to really get this right, because blame is the discharge of anger. And when we're angry, we not only blame, but in Mark's words, we have uncovered that anger is the discharge of judgment. It is so much easier to blame and be angry. It is so much easier to judge than it is to reconcile than it is to apologize, than it is to, I'm going to fix her. They need to do this, as opposed to, wait a minute. I need to fix me. I need to go into myself first. I need to self-assess what I did. This might all be something that I could have avoided if I'd self-led and I'm not going to use the word self-care. I'm going to use the word self-led and was self-aware enough and had done the work. If we did more work, we'd be less judgmental.
That's such a profound thought. That reminds me of the whole emotionally healthy, emotional intelligence, where, and maybe that should be our calling as men and as humans, as Christians, is like every conflict should start with self-assessment.
Yeah.
Like, don't be quick to judge. Like your first microscope needs to be at what's my agenda here? Why are my feelings hurt? Like what's offended in me? Instead of what I tended to do early was, no, you did something that got my hackles up. You're at fault. Now there's no, why are my hackles up? Like, why do I feel disrespected? And like, to do that work, to your point, do the work.
One of the things, it's like Jesus, and they're about to stone that woman.
Yeah.
And he goes and he's drawing in the sand and he stands up and he goes, okay, you can stone her. But first, whoever's not sinned, like, you cast the first stone, and everybody dissipated. Just doing that work.
Well, it's interesting. The older people peeled off first. You remember that part? Yeah. Because us old people, we know. Yeah. It's not lost on us.
That was my deep dive. I also think, I first apply this to myself. How can I really do the self work before I try to tell someone else what to do? Still, it's getting worse with age, not better.
Oh, is it really?
Well, the awareness of the awareness of the journey, the awareness of what we're learning, the awareness of our gaps. We still have gaps. They may not be finished on this side of heaven, but the awareness of them. And I think about, you take that into marriage, you take that into your kids, you apply that to your adult kids, you apply that to your grandkids. I think about leaders at work, and everybody wants to go in on the one-on-one and give that piece of feedback to get better performance from someone. But who is the person in those need conversations that says, hey, before I discuss performance, I want to tell you how much of this I think I own. And then I want to get to your part.
Yeah,
that's a different conversation with an employee and with a leader, as opposed to, let me tell you what I needed and how you fell short.
You fell, yeah.
And what would happen if those conversations started with, look, I've assessed this, and there's pieces of this that I own, and here are the things I need, and here's the things I want you to think about, and I'd ask for your help on. And we're going to talk about it now and regroup. Let's have breakfast next week. That's a very different,
that's beautiful
exchange.
I love that.
Because a lot of times it's just with your employees, your spouse.
Well, especially when you're in a position of authority. Like if you're the underling, it's a lot harder to be that arrogant. But when you own everything, it's pretty easy to be. Was easy for me.
How beautiful is that authority? How beautiful it is to be like that kind of leader, and the worthiness of.
I'm trying.
I'm not.
I'm not that.
I'm not either.
I want to be that.
Me too. Anyway,
that's good, Scott.
Yeah. So my deep dive is really around forgiveness and reconciliation, which is kind of the big idea from the whole series with Mark.
Sure.
But this really more specifically comes out of episode 108, which was the last kind of main episode that we did with Mark before we talked about advice to his 35-year-old self. There was a few things that kind of stuck out to me and were things, first of all, admittedly, maybe it's my young bravado. I thought I had forgiveness pretty well understood. And I think there was a few things because of a few situations in the last few years where I really had to study forgiveness because it was required of me to practice it in some relationships that had gone sideways, wounds that I had gotten, dog bites I had gotten. And there was a few things in the reconciliation conversation specifically where I had always seen forgiveness and reconciliation as the same thing.
Mhm.
You can't have one without the other.
Mhm.
That was my my concept of it.
Mm.
And Mark really took that and pulled that apart for me. And so I'm going to read a few of them to make sure that I get it right, because this is so vital to the concept. And Mark's reframing of it is forgiveness takes one side.
Yeah.
That was a big one, really throughout the whole series.
Right.
You could pretty much go back and watch every episode and pick up on the fact that forgiveness is one-sided. There can be forgiveness from both sides, but that starts to become reconciliation. You can forgive the other person and not even have to be in contact with that person, because forgiveness happens in here. And whether or not you are actually able to tell the person or not, forgiveness happens in here. And so that was big for me. The other part was that on the reconciliation side of things, reconciliation takes two sides.
Yeah.
You cannot reconcile with one side. Like you hurt me. I want to reconcile. I can't say, oh, me and Scott are good now, because Scott's over there going, me and Peyton are not good.
Yeah.
Like we're not reconciled.
Yeah.
And so the idea that reconciliation takes two sides, and reconciliation has to come out of forgiveness.
Yeah.
Forgiveness has to be the foundation, the cornerstone that comes first before you can build the house of reconciliation on top of it. That's a huge concept and I think that's vital to relationships, because I think a lot of people go, well, I forgave them. They didn't forgive me, or they don't want to talk to me anymore, even though I forgave them, or whatever it is. And so they feel like forgiveness didn't take place, or they feel like forgiveness happened on my end, but they're not around to receive the forgiveness or to even be aware that I forgave them, because maybe we've cut off contact or whatever else.
And that's not complete then?
Yeah. And so they feel like the loading bar of forgiveness, or the completion bar of forgiveness is stuck at like 80%, or it's stuck at 50%.
Yeah.
And Mark is saying, no, it can be 100%.
Yeah. Without them even knowing.
Without them even knowing.
So I was going to, it's one aside to that, and we haven't talked about, but I'm going to suggest that you can forgive each other.
Right.
And still not reconcile.
Right.
Like the idea that somehow both sides forgive, you're reconciled. Not necessarily, because you could say, and I never want to see you again, but I forgive you. And you feel like, and that happens in breakups all the time.
And that's okay.
And it's okay and still desirable.
Right.
Reconciliation is something different.
And I think it's important in that scenario. Like I could see, just looking at my own experience with, like, to use breakups, for example, in dating romantic relationships, is like, I think it's important that if there is two-way forgiveness, but there's not necessarily reconciliation in the sense that we're going to continue the relationship like it has been, the relationship is going to change, whether that means we aren't in contact as much, or we aren't in each other's lives as much, or we just aren't in each other's lives at all, that if that's the case, that there's not resentment that comes out of that like, oh, I forgave her, or we forgave each other, or whatever. But because they didn't want to reconcile, now I have this resentment that
carry this. You still carry the bag,
right? Like you have to forgive, and subject to nothing else. That was a big point from Mark.
Big point.
Subject to nothing from them, and then if they don't want to reconcile, or if they don't want to forgive, you have to let it stay there. Like that has to be
sand off your
sandals.
You got to
shake the sand off your sandals and move on. So that was a big point.
This will date me, so Peyton, you probably never heard of this, but when I was in college, I went to Bill Gothard's Institute in Basic Youth Conflict. Do you remember when he used to hold these big? It was in the Omni. It was a big facility, and he said, "Do the effort of writing your asking for forgiveness and forgive." For all the people whose wounds you carry, or that you owe an apology to. You may never see that person again. And you know what? That doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
The effort of asking for an apology and apologizing is enough because it changes you. And so your point of like subject to nothing, like you don't even need them to hear it for it to be valuable.
Yeah.
Better that they hear it.
Yeah. I mean, sure. Better that they hear it. And, you know, there's situations that I know of in my community where like there's people that haven't gotten to reconcile and haven't gotten to tell people that they've forgiven them. And there's been situations in my own life where that's been the case. And I so badly want to be able to say that, you know, tell the person that I forgave them, but it's just not possible because of the situation. And it feels like it's not complete, but I have to be okay with
this.
That.
Is just part of our eternity. But I think in what I've learned since my father passed, what I wouldn't give to sit down with them and apologize. For a lot of things. Someday I hope I get that. But I think it does change you to just take that position, the contriteness, he made mistakes. I made mistakes. Like,
I think about how many people are stuck. There's a clog in that they feel like forgiveness was two-part. They're still, for them to have the forgiveness, they feel like the other person has to be along on the ride, that the other person holds a part or a key to unlock the forgiveness. And I think how many people are stuck in that and don't realize that it really is just, it's a gift that you give yourself. It's a gift that you give the other person, asking nothing in return. And it's really not two-way. It's a one-way. And I think a lot of people, Mark blamed the church. I'm not going to go that far, but I think a lot of people got stuck in, you know, it had to be two-way and that they own a part and you own a part. No. And I think how many people could be free just from what Mark Goodman talked about, listening to this, how many people could be free and say, you know what, I'm going to forgive them. I'm going to give that gift to myself. I've given that gift to them. Not sure if they've forgiven me. Maybe I'm going to start building my reconciliation bridge. I'm ready. Don't know if they're ready, but I'm going to do it anyway. This is the bridge in Avignon that didn't extend to the other kingdom. The other kingdom wanted no part of them and said, well,
we're building our part.
We're building our part. And I just think what that would look like and how much free it would be.
I just think we talk a lot about spiritual leadership. Like imagine if men led their homes, just in their homes, regardless of where else.
If men were bridge builders.
We created an atmosphere. I love the way you talked about your family, quick to forgive, and just a position of, I'm not looking to be offended. I'm quick to forgive. I'm quick to let go. I'm quick to offer opportunity to reconciliation. But we live in such a world of, we can't, even on politics, we want to, violence over, like, oh my gosh, we've lost the plot. Lost the plot.
And social media has made this worse. I mean, we get stuck in, what would people think? What are people going to say? How is this going to change my standing or whatever illusion you have of a standing? And it just gets really confounded very quickly. It really does.
So good.
Yeah. So, and the kind of the last part of my deep dive is, it goes right along with reconciliation. We kind of have alluded to it just now, is build your side of the bridge. This concept that we should be building our side of the bridge. There's two mountains on either side of a large gaping valley. The large gaping valley is the difference between us in whatever the situation was. You hurt me, I hurt you, we hurt each other. That these mountains are far apart. There's no way to get from one to the other. You're one mountain, I'm the other mountain, and I can't force you to build your side of the bridge. It's the bridge at Avignon. They couldn't force the other kingdom to build their side of the bridge over to the other side. There was no way to get over to the other side and just build the bridge for them.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Because they get swept away in the current.
Yeah.
And so we're just going to build our side of the bridge. And so what would it look like if men were the leaders of building bridges? And you need to understand, you can't build the entire bridge. You can only build half of the bridge. And that's hard for us as men because we want to be fixers.
Fix it.
And we want to control it.
And we want to control it. and we can't control the outcome, subject to nothing from the other side.
Right.
But what if men were the leaders in building bridges? But they're more often than not, unfortunately, I think we have to accept that a lot of times they're going to be half bridges. Yeah. They're going to be bridges of Avignon that are built halfway.
Yeah. That's okay.
And maybe that's okay. But we can go to God and we can know and we can say, I built my bridge, and be void of the conviction that we haven't done everything that we could do. Because, it really ties to obedience to God. It's like God, and this is a longer point in my notes, but God modeled this for us in that he built the bridge. He built his side of the bridge through Jesus for reconciliation and forgiveness.
When we did nothing.
Right. Subject to nothing from the other side.
We did a lot of nothing.
And while we were still sinners, while the world was still sinners, God built the bridge through Jesus. He provided the opportunity for forgiveness and reconciliation. And he said, all you got to do is build your side of the bridge from your broken kingdom over to my perfect side of the bridge. And that looks like repentance. And then once you repent, that's your side of the bridge. And then on the other side of the bridge, there's all this forgiveness and reconciliation.
Peace and freedom.
This is another big point of reconciliation. Reconciliation is all about relationship. Forgiveness is all about obedience. Reconciliation is all about relationship. And so that was big. I think a big concept is build your side of the bridge, especially as men. We need to be leaders in that. Build your side of the bridge. And subject to whether or not subject to whether or not they build their side of the bridge. Build your side of the bridge, be obedient, and then pray that, God changes and moves in their heart.
I think it's important too. I think the forgiveness piece might be the easiest one, but I think the reconciliation piece, as it unfolds, as it occurs, that timing is unknown. That timing for some people might take years.
Yeah, that's true.
It might take weeks. It might take, we don't know how long that takes. But I think the salient point is we're only in control of building our heart, our part. That's right. The other one, the other part of we're not in control of that.
The other thing on that concept that I heard differently this time from Mark was he said part of our job should be to bring those two mountains closer together. So not just build the bridge, but heal that part, own your part, get it down to the narrowest bridge that has to be. Maybe you don't 100% get on the same page, but bring that as close together as you can. And again, I think about those fathers out there that have children that have gone off the reservation and stuff. Maybe there are only a couple things and you've made it into a war of 12 issues. Like resolve in your own mind that maybe it's only one or two. Like bring those bridges closer together. That was new to me.
For the relationship to be restored. But I think the spiritual obedient piece is forgiving.
Yes. Yes. Right on.
That's awesome, Peyton. That's big stuff.
We're gonna have to do a few more series. I feel like on forgiveness and reconciliation.
I know. It's
smart. If you're out there, we'd love to have a conversation with you.
That smart story was amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that if you haven't already, understand that we are on the journey with you. This forgiveness, reconciliation stuff, and the deep way that Mark explains it really affected us. And as we heard from you, it affected you too.
Yes.
Coming up very soon, we're going to delve into another topic that's come from the community. And this whole idea of emotional intelligence. So much of reconciliation and forgiveness is fueled by EQ or emotional intelligence. And we get at that with a guy named Russ West. You're going to love it. There is the discussion of what emotional intelligence is, what it means to men. How do we take that into marriage, our most important relationship on earth? And how do we use that to make us better fathers, which is extraordinary. So you won't want to miss that. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for your comments. Keep listening, keep sharing, and we wish you all the best here from the Outpost. Thanks very much.